This is the particular video I've been waiting and hoping to see on this 30 days challenge. And guess what? The video has finally arrived. Now, the senior accused of Nigeria, Mr. Dele Farotimi SAN, has weighed in on this 30 days challenge, or should I say, on this issue of a copper who reside in Lagos, who call out Mr. President and other leaders expressing her frustration, or should I say, her experience on the effect of this bad economy in this country. Now, Mr. Dele Farotimi has dropped another banger. Now, for those of you who has been bashing the girl, saying that she insulted the president, why should he say something like that? Dele Farotimi has said a hit about that everything the girl said is the right one. In fact, if you say that what the girl was saying is not the right, say your own the way you think is the right one and post it on social media. In fact, what Dele Farotimi said in this video is going to shock you. But nevertheless, let me allow you to listen to Dele Farotimi, how he analyzed the video and everything that is going on. In fact, as you are listening to it, make sure you are clicking on that share button and also subscribe in case if you have never done so for more updates. And after that, I'll be back. Let's go there.
Activist Wishi Rita Ogwamai, otherwise known as Rai, is gaining traction for criticizing Tinubu's government.
No, she's not gaining traction for criticizing Tinubu's government. She's gaining traction for exposing the idiocy of the Nigerian people who do not understand that their primary duty in this situation is to speak to the truth of what the girl has said, not to be siding with our oppressor who are also their own oppressors. You talk about Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome has nothing on the Lagos or Nigerian syndrome. This is one place where the oppressed constantly fight against those speaking to the truth of their oppression or looking to free them from their servitude. So me, I don't know what the girl has done that they are all shouting and braying like maddened donkeys and rabid dogs. As far as I'm concerned, the young woman spoke to the truth of her reality. And they had better get used to it. And I dare you, Nigerian youth, speak your own truth and post it. If it is only Raye, they will be chasing her up and down the place. We should probably even have a day where everybody speaks to their experiences and post it online, and then let's see how many people they are going to go and arrest. Look, this is not about Raye. It's about allowing an atmosphere of fear where people are afraid to express their pains. How do you beat a child and then demand that the child should not cry? How? So the Raye is not about Raye, it's about us as a collective. If you have found the capacity to criticize that girl for saying what you know to be the truth, you might quarrel with her language. And I know a lot of people quarrel with my own language as well. But it is not my duty to speak in a language that is pleasant to my oppressor. My oppressor can go do one just because he doesn't like my language. I hope he doesn't like it. When I speak in terms that are provocative, it is deliberate. I want the person who is oppressing me, limiting my capacities in my country, to be angry by my capacity to also speak to the fact of my situation. So if the girl has spoken in a manner that they don't like, let them address the truth of what she has said. To be all these farcical gyrations, she abused the president. How did she? He's a terrible president. Is that a lie? How much more terrible does the president have to be before we say he's terrible? He is terrible. The quality of life has been eroded for everybody, from the lowest to the highest. The only people who are having anything good in Nigeria today are essentially people who have been offered one toll gate or the other from which to be feeding fat on the Nigerian people, or they have direct access to the public purse. So if a youth copper who is feeling the pinch of life in Lagos speaks to that fact, how does that become an offense? We have become, the painful thing is that what is important is abandoned, ignored, and then we are chasing shadows. You don't like the way the girl said the truth that she has said.
Many Nigerians actually admire your courage, but fear government retaliation, as they're saying.
Fear.
What will you say to young Nigerians who want to fight injustice but are afraid, sir?
See, the first thing you do if you want to fight injustice, speak. What Raye has done is to speak. You might not like the way she has spoken her truth. Speak it the way you feel it should be spoken. But do not take away a person's capacity to speak to the fact of their reality. Yorubas will say that the inability to speak to your pains is the beginning of your ruination. The girl spoke to our reality. If more Nigerians will speak to their reality, maybe they will be so uncomfortable they might even begin to do the right things.
Finally, sir, if you had just one message to share with Nigerian people right now, what will it be?
If you gain nothing else before 2027, make sure you have the capacity to choose who rules you. Because these ones that you are not choosing, they are ruining you. Look at what they are doing in Rivers. He offers you an example. And the fact that Yakubu Mahmood is still in office is a slap on every Nigerian. That guy should be out of that place and we should be focused on electoral reform. That's the only thing I would love them to hear.
In brief, can you walk us through your experience at the detention? I mean, what were conditions like? How did it shape your perspective on Nigeria's justice system?
Here's the thing. I promised my cellmates and fellow prisoners that whenever I got around to talking about my time in prison, it was only ever going to be talked about in comical terms. And that's actually very deliberate, because there is nothing about prison that is anything short of tragic, especially the Nigerian prison. So if I begin to treat the Nigerian prison as an issue and I begin to talk about, if I speak to my own experience, there will be a little bit of fraudulence there, because I wasn't your average prisoner. So if I'm beginning to talk to the Nigerian prison system, I will be largely fictional. Fictional in the sense that I would have to be speaking to the experiences of others, and that is why it's best I dealt with it only in the most comical of terms, even though it is a tragicomedy. The system is not fit for human beings. The Nigerian prison system is not in any way, shape or form reformatory. It is actually even worse than punishment. The average Nigerian prisoner who is dependent on prison rations will be dead in 3 months. And that is no hyperbole, it's just fact. 3 months at most, he will be dead. He will be dead due to one opportunistic disease or the other, or he will die of malnutrition. It's that simple. I am grateful to God that I didn't have to eat the food. I didn't even have to taste it. So I was privileged. I am blessed not to have to deal with the reality of being where I was. So I wouldn't be the right person to speak to what Nigerian prison conditions are like. I wasn't offered or given any extra privileges of any sort, but I was self-feeding. So I didn't have to deal with that. And Yorubas will say, I didn't have to suffer the pains of incarceration and then deal with the pangs of hunger or deprivation of any sort. I saw prison officers just spending their own money to buy medicine for prisoners. Are those the people I want to be criticizing? The people within the system, the officers themselves, mostly, not all, but mostly pristine human beings, probably better than most of us out here. And I'll say the same for some of the prisoners themselves. But we all live in one big fat prison anyway, so, but I'm not qualified to talk about Nigerian prisons.
Now, what kept you going during your time in detention? I mean, there are moments when you questioned your quest to fight for justice.
T. Gomez, let me put it this way. I waited all of 40 years for the moment that happened. I had pictured that moment in my head all through my teenage years as I grew up, and I was more interested in finding how I measured up against what I had imagined all the times that I had waited for it to happen. You don't confront an evil system such as the world in which we live without expecting pushbacks and repercussions, and I've suffered a few over the years. But this particular one, let's just say that I am grateful to God that when the moment came, I was prepared for the moment. So I didn't have any moment where I was racked with any doubt of any kind. I knew I was going to come out. I knew that the prison was not going to be able to hold me. What I didn't know was that I would come out so quickly. I went in believing that I would not come out until like February. As bad as the system is, I was certain that no matter how much the system might be abused, I would get bail at some point. So I was already expecting. I told even my abductors, I told them, I'm sure I'll be out of your care by February. I told my wife, I told the lawyers, I told my friend, I told everybody who cared to listen. People who cared about me sufficiently to be worried about my well-being. I told them, don't worry, I'll be out of here by February. So by the time I was coming out, I was projecting 3 months. Because of the fact that Nigerians invested themselves in me, I came out in 3 weeks. Instead of 3 months, it took 3 weeks. Exactly 21 days, and I was expecting 90 days. So who am I to complain? But it was a good time to be away from the hustle and bustle of Lagos. I enjoyed the sedate environment of Ekiti, even though it wasn't my will, but it was quite an experience and I enjoyed myself.
Do you see any parallels between your detention and the experiences of other political prisoners in Nigeria?
I wasn't a political prisoner. I wasn't a political prisoner. I don't believe myself to be a political prisoner. The system would have to decide what I was. I didn't go to prison on a political charge. I was taken before 2 courts. Before the magistrate court, I was charged with specific crimes. Criminal defamation. Whether the crime exists in the law books of Ekiti State or not, that's another ball game entirely. It wasn't political. By the time they took me to the Federal High Court, it became cyber crime. So I wasn't political. Somebody like Yele, for instance, who shouted revolution now and he got hauled into detention, that is political. So I wasn't in detention, I was in prison. So be careful to distinguish the two. I went through a process, whether it is now the due process or not, whether it was a legitimate process or not, whether it was the lawful process or not, that's another ball game entirely. But I wasn't a political prisoner.
Some may really object to that, considering the fact that the basis for all of this persecution you experienced was the book you wrote on the criminal justice system.
My book wasn't political. My book wasn't political. I wrote a book about the realities of what I have seen within the Nigerian society.
But Dave, that clearly mirrored the entirety of the criminal justice system
here is
in
the
country.
How people elect to interpret the book. I was hoping, and I'm still hoping, that the book would spark some sort of reform within the judicial system. I still retain the hope that even those who rejoiced at my incarceration would find sufficient humanity to realize that if it is tolerated in relation to A, then it becomes legalized against B, C, D, E, and F. And you know, the thing about endorsing oppression is that, you know, when you're at the beach and you're busy peeing on top of a crab, and then the wind direction shifts, you find that you're peeing on yourself, even though it was a poor little crab that you started out peeing on. That is what happens when you endorse oppression. So frankly, I don't see what I have done as a political action. I believe what I have done is to bear witness as a citizen. The fact that we have become so Philistinic and we don't read, and even when we read, our biases have turned us into people who subjectivize the truth. So if it is the truth in relation to A, it might no longer be the truth in relation to B, simply because you like B, or B speaks your language, or you worship in the same church, or you are in the same mosque. So all I have done is to put a mirror in front of the judiciary. It wasn't about persons. That's why I'm very careful to point out that I wasn't a political prisoner. It is about a system that is structured to permit abuses, structured to administer impunity. And you know, Yorubas have this thing, ọlọ́dẹ olóṣòkò pẹran oníkò rí bẹ́ẹ̀ ó délé ewúrẹ́ ń kú lọ́tún adìẹ ń kú lósì. If what I wrote in the book are lies, what I have experienced, are they lies?
Considering your experience, some critics have looked at it that seems Nigerian elites, criminal elites so to speak, are weaponizing the justice by using the legal system in order to silence dissent. Do you believe that?
The Nigerian legal system is not structured to deliver justice. Institutionally, it is actually incapable of delivering justice. And it is not its fault. It is a function of the structuring and the purpose to which it is pressed. Purpose almost always determines design. If a system is designed to deliver justice, the process of appointment into judicial offices would not be what it currently is. Judicial positions have become essentially hereditary. It is the children of retired justices or serving justices, and it reached its apogee during the years of Kayode Ariwoola. The level of nepotism that riddles the Nigerian judiciary today guarantees that it cannot do justice. It has become essentially prebendal. Rub my back, I rub your back. Bokachua gave us an insight into how judicial decisions were reached. And when you look at the various judicial somersaults that are taking place in our space, it is, look, if we're ever going to save our country, at some point we are going to have to tell ourselves that we must fix the judiciary.
Talking about the systemic rot, what was your detention? I mean, reveal.
Stop calling it detention. I refuse to allow. No, see, I am big on linguistic exactitude. If I was in detention, I might have been in a police cell somewhere, in a DSS facility somewhere, in a DMI facility somewhere. I was not in detention. It wasn't a political. It wasn't even Tinubu. So I was imprisoned, and somebody will still explain the basis of my imprisonment. So it wasn't detention. Maybe a day will come when they would elevate me to yearly status and start detaining me. But this one, I was a prisoner.
So the fact that you were a prisoner, yeah. What does it state? I mean, reveal about the state of law enforcement, considering the process you had to go through. You were abducted, and moved to a different state, a different jurisdiction. I mean, the entire process itself. What does it reveal about the state of law enforcement and judiciary in Nigeria, in brief, sir?
When I was picking the title for the book itself, a lot of people don't. There is a play on word in that title: Nigeria and its criminal justice system. The reality is that it is the justice system itself that has become criminal. It has taken the justice system becoming criminal for Nigeria to become the perverse place it has become today. Our judicial system, it's not just the judge, it begins with law enforcement. If I had a dispute with you here in Lagos, and you reside here in Lekki Phase 1 where you are interviewing me, and you were going to come and you report to the police in Lekki Phase 1, and they were going to come to my house at Chevron within the same Lekki to arrest me, they would go to the police station closest to my house and they would document the fact that there is an arrest warrant and they were coming to pick me up. But this time around, policemen left Ekiti State. They crossed 6 state lines. They abducted me. I was sat in this very seat, and I was abducted from my office with my staff serially assaulted, slapped, punched, elbowed on camera by men who could not have been said to be uniformed. And I was taken in a private bus. These policemen were accompanied by a private security guard. He was one of those who assaulted my staff on camera. What kind of law enforcement is that? Even if I had committed a crime for which I must be arrested, is that how arrests are carried out? And then I was hauled before a magistrate. I will not speak to that charge for now, for multiple reasons. Because one thing you can take for granted is that some people would have to explain what took place. So when you speak to law enforcement, the entire process has been criminalized.
Confirm. Now I hope you get the point. Again, this girl's video has made it easier for people who has been afraid to speak up, thinking that maybe they are the one that is passing through difficulties in this country. They have come out to realize that it is not only them that the difficult situation is a general matter. In fact, people are now coming out to speak their mind, and Dele Farotimi has said it, that everybody should come out and speak their mind. But he's also said that this country is a very anyhow place, because when you come out to speak against your oppressors, those your fellow oppressed will still come out and bash you for speaking out, while them too are still suffering even harder than why you are suffering. In fact, let me allow you to share your own thought with me on the comment section. And of course, you know the vibe now. Click on that subscribe button, follow, and share for more updates. Because like this, hey, we move.